All right, here he is, Gus G from Firewind, and of course, previously in Ozzy. Gus, what's going on, man?
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Hope you're
man.
doing well.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. There's a brand new Firewind album, Stand United, coming out March 1st. And of the 10 songs on the record, 5 have already been released as singles. What is the thought process behind releasing so many singles? I mean, of course, the world that we live in now is critically low attention spans, and it is really a singles world. But do you think that diminishes the overall hype of the record on the day of release?
I mean, you can look at it both ways, I guess. I mean, you kind of answered it there yourself because of the whole short attention span that people have nowadays. You kind of have to keep throwing singles at them and content the whole time. And I mean, this is the first time that we've tried to do something like this. I'm not gonna lie. Usually, we've done like 2 or 3 singles leading up to the album. This time we've done half the album. Um, I'm not sure if other bands do all that, but I mean, I think it's pretty honest. I mean, of
Sure.
us,
Yeah.
like here's half of the album. If by now for some reason you're not sold on that, then you're probably not gonna support the band anyway. So it's like if you like what you're hearing, like you might and you like the band, you might as well pick up the album when it comes out because how much more can the rest of it suck? I don't know.
Yeah, I was listening to the singles yesterday, and I'm excited for the whole thing. I think the singles so far are great. This is also the second album with vocalist Herbie. Is it Langens? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Langens. Yep, correct. Langens. Yeah.
There's been quite a few different singers in Firewind over the years. Why is that?
I don't know, man. It's it's always why the thing that people ask me about. It's I don't know. It's always seems to be the ongoing question why all the lineup changes, and out of all the lineup changes, why the singer especially? Um, yeah, good question. I don't know. We went through probably like 5 singers by now, and I think I'm not gonna lie. I think it has hurt uh, the band's brand a little bit and the identity because people, you know, of course, I write all the material and I'm like the main man and all that stuff and the main face of the band, but the vocalist is the voice is what people identify with. So if you lose that, I can understand that it might confuse some people along the way. On the bright side of things, we've had some pretty killer singers. So whatever era of the band you're into, or whatever album you pick up from us, you're definitely gonna hear a great singer on an album. Um, Now back to the question, why all these singers? It just happens, man. Like it's one of those things where we are a touring band. We're not a studio project. I mean, once you go into that world, you realize that a lot of people are not made for the road, or they eventually, after a few years, they don't have uh, the same goals as you do. So yeah, you're gonna come across like situations where you might have to part ways with certain members. Uh, I mean, we're not the only band that has gone through lineup changes. But yeah, I think it has to do with the fact that we're just like a hardworking band, and like we tour a lot. We like to tour behind each album we release. Um, and Also, like probably the first couple of singers of the band were because we hadn't even become a touring band. We were kind of uh, like a file exchanging band to begin with. Basically, it was just people that were helping me to finish the record, so they didn't necessarily going to stick around, on the long term. So we're one of the bands that started unorthodox, not like the occasional like 4 guys from the neighborhood that crafted their sound and their whole thing in a garage. It was just me basically, and then I would scout guys around the world and just do records through emails, basically just email files and things like that. In a time when it wasn't really common, it was really unusual, and with much slower internet. um, so yeah, I think we're kind of band that grew like in the public eye, so to speak. So our fans got to see us going through multiple lineup changes. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, but there's your long answer right there.
Well, like you said, I mean, you're the face of the band, so I would have to imagine that a majority of Firewind fans, I mean, they're really just there for Gus G mainly.
I think they're there to hear the songs. They know that I'm definitely going to be in the band, and I'm definitely going to have uh, a great band with me, no matter what. Um, but I think Firewind fans by now they probably come there to hear specific songs, they or hopefully their favorite songs, or I don't know what they're, but you know, we're a band that by now, like 20 plus years into this, you know, has become a brand. So people have their favorite eras, like our fans have their favorite incarnations of the band or favorite albums and favorite songs. And yeah, I don't think they just come to see me, but they know I'm going to be there, and then they know
Sure.
it's going to be a good quality show. But yeah, I think they come to see the band.
So I want to go back to your beginnings for a minute, because what I find so fascinating is that, you know, of course, you grow up in Greece, you hear guys like Peter Frampton, Al Di Meola, absolutely floored by it. So your dad gets you a guitar, and eventually you end up coming over here to America to attend Berkeley. I think they even gave you like a $5,000 scholarship or something, I was reading. But then you end up leaving just a couple of weeks after starting, because you find out it's really just not for you to be in school anymore. Which is, you know, I mean,
Yes, that is correct.
I feel like that's, you know, a lot of people's dreams to go to a prestigious school like Berkeley, and then you show up there and you're like, you know what? I just don't think this is quite my thing.
Yeah, you know, it might sound like the way you put it. Maybe it sounds like I was some kind of a snobby kid, but the truth is that my family could not afford to put me in college for 4 years, anyways. Like, you know, my background is working class family, and it was really hard for my parents to make it happen for me to come over to the States to be able to go to Berkeley College. But it was just such an opportunity that I could not miss, you know. And when I came there, I realized that, well, probably I'm not going to be able to afford here like the second year. And honestly, I was not really. I had already been to a conservatory. I had already taken a lot of formal, what do you call it, like formal training. So I think right there and then I decided to save on that money, and then just maybe put it into a recording, and then just drop out of school and then try to do something, or hopefully meet somebody or join a band. And I think that was the philosophy of it, or the mindset behind my decision back then. Yeah, so that's what I did, you know. I think
it was
halfway through that first semester, I was just like, yeah, see you guys.
And it was while you were here in America that you started Firewind, right? But initially, if I read this right, you really just started it so that you could land a record deal as a guitar player, right? So Firewind was just kind of just something so you could have something to submit to labels and stuff.
Yeah, basically, I was just making my own demos with some friends that I had met at Berkeley, and yeah, like I named it Firewind because I was a big Uli John Roth fan, and I love his album Firewind from Electric Sun. And at that time, there was no band. It wasn't a band. It was just me, and I called myself Firewind, I guess. and I would just send that to labels, and hoping that I would get some kind of interest from somebody. Yeah.
Well, it was also around that time you became involved with a few other bands like Dream Evil, Night Rage, Mystic Prophecy, and then, of course, eventually By 2005, you ended up filling in for Arch Enemy on Ozfest 2005. How did you get that gig? And I would imagine that was probably your first taste of doing something, you know, as big as Ozfest.
Yeah, that's correct. I think I had met Michael Amott of Arch Enemy when I was in Sweden. That's where we met. He was recording at Studio Fredman, and I was in a band with a studio owner, Frederick. The band was Dream Evil. So I was there, and I was, you know, I was in Sweden, totally broke, and I was just trying to make a buck here and there. And then Frederick would let me clean the studio twice a month or something, and just he would give me some pocket money because I was totally broke, you know. I was like, okay, what can I do here for you? How can I help around? So I was in the studio around a lot, you know, and I met a lot of the bands that were going in there to record, you know, like Michael with Arch Enemy was there, or like the In Flames guys were like next door. Like it was in Gothenburg, you know, like late 90s, early 2000s. So like I got to meet all those guys, you know, back then.
Yeah.
And it was such an underground scene back then. And I mean, though those bands were just started to explode and a few years after that. But anyways, I had my band. Obviously, I started my band with I started Dream Evil and Frederick. And I think, you know, like I said, just being around there, I met a lot of musicians, a lot of bands that came in. And Michael just emailed me out of the blue around, sometime in 2005. And he said, dude, like, my brother's quitting the band and we got this big tour ahead of us and I need a guitar player. And I was like, yeah, I'm your guy, you know. I wasn't doing much that summer and I was like, yeah, this is going to be, it was my first great like opportunity to see how a professional band at that level works. Because up until then it was all like DIY, you know. We didn't know what we were doing. We had record deal and we were putting out records and doing some tours and gigs, but you know, I didn't know how things worked at the next level basically. So yeah, that's how I ended up doing the gig with Arch Enemy. I spent the whole summer with the guys. We rehearsed a bit and then we went to America for like 2 months.
Well, and the Ozfest that you did with them, that was of course the same year as the now infamous battle between Sharon Osbourne and Iron Maiden, you know, which of course famously resulted in her having the eggs pelted at Maiden while they were playing. What do you recall of that feud? Was there a lot of tension that you had noticed between the two camps?
You know what? We watched Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath sets every night. Me and Michael, like, because we played on the second stage early on, and every evening, like after we were done with everything in the signing sessions, we would just grab a beer and then go watch Maiden and Sabbath. What a summer! And
yeah, no kidding.
There was one night we're like, okay, well, let's miss the show tonight. Let's drive. There was a long drive, and there was some day off somewhere. And we're like, okay, let's go and crash somewhere else. And, you know, we'll miss the show tonight. You know, we'll just drive. We'll leave early. And the next day we wake up and we're like, it was all over like the news, like the Blabbermouth and all those websites, like Sharon shuts down like the power during Iron Maiden concert and throws eggs. And we're like, what the fuck happened? What did we miss?
Wow.
So we missed it. We didn't see any of that.
Oh my God. That's Jesus. The one show that you miss and that happens. No kidding. That was the only one. Yeah. It was crazy. Did you see like any tensions between the two camps before that, or it was everything pretty kept on the DL?
You know, like backstage, you couldn't sense any of that because there were like so many bands parked like backstage and stuff. So the only thing that was kind of strange was that I think Bruce Dickinson went out and he was saying, like, I think he was trying to provoke the audience a little bit. Like he was saying some things like about Sabbath some nights on the mic. Like, we're not one of those bands that rely on the back catalog. We still make our own music. And I think he was saying things like that. And I think that's what probably triggered Sharon. But I don't really know the details of all the technicalities of that.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, when he was saying things like that, we were all like, "Whoa, okay, who is that for? Like, who's that? What does he mean?"
Man, what a thing to have been a part of. That's insane. Well, Black Label Society was also a part of that same Ozfest. And while you're on the road, you read in Blabbermouth or whatever that Ozzy was looking for a new guitarist. So you go down to the production office, you drop off a CD, but ultimately nothing came out of it. And it wasn't even until a few years after that Zach even left the band, right? He still stayed with Ozzy for a few years after that news came out, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, they had announced something that summer, like, we're auditioning guitar players, and I was like, "What's going on? Like, Zach is on this tour, like, right here. Why is he Ozzy auditioning other guitarists?" And I mean, I thought it was, I don't know, it took a lot of I didn't dare to even like go and knock on the production office to leave my CD, but I just did it one day. I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
But nothing happened. He was back in the band. They did like another album, and like out of the blue, like 4 years later, I just got an email. Like, I had no idea what was going on. I wasn't even in touch like with what Ozzy was doing. Was he doing another record? Was he doing? I didn't know. By that time, I was well into my own thing, and doing Firewind tours and things like that. So to get an email like that out of nowhere, it was shocking.
Yeah, well, and I want to get into all that, but before we move off the Ozfest thing, was there any sort of communication or interaction with Ozzy at all during Ozfest, or not really?
No. That's why I'm saying I thought it was weird, because I didn't meet anybody. I didn't know anybody. Like, I don't think anybody. I mean, nobody like contacted me like after I dropped off like my music at the production. I was like, nobody came back to me. So I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah. So,
but I think like during that tour, they also said that, okay, like those auditions they called them off.
That's a weird.
I don't know
situation.
if there was some kind of falling out, or I you know what? I don't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah. So eventually you get that email, you go in, this is 2009, you go into audition, you start jamming the songs with just the band. Ozzy's not there at this point. Eventually he comes in. Does the pressure really kick in at that point when Ozzy shows up, or, since you had already been jamming with the rest of the guys in the band, are you kind of already a little comfortable, kind of locked in with those guys? And so, you're pretty comfortable moving on with Ozzy in the room?
Yeah, I think, the fact that they gave me my time to just run through the set a couple of times with the guys. I think at that point, I was really nervous before that, but after that, like after I dialed my tone and I played the songs, that's when I realized, okay, I think I got this. I think, I think I can do this. I can handle this pretty well. And then Ozzy came in. Of course, it's like, you're starstruck because, come on, I never
there's the Prince
been
of
in
Darkness
the same
right
room
there.
with. Yeah. I never been in the same room with him, and like in a private room like this. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? But he was cool, man. He was just, he just did his vocal warm ups in a room right next door, and then he came in. And he's like, okay, let's jam, and it was fun. It was cool. But I felt good about it. I felt comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, and didn't you say like after 6 songs or something, he turns around, he looks at you, and he's like, "You're fucking great, man."
Yeah. He did that. Yeah, he turned because he didn't say, he rolled through the songs like back to back. There was no like breaks in between. Like as soon as the song finished, he would just call like "Bark at the Moon," like we go the next one, and then as soon as that ends, "Crazy Train." Like he didn't say anything. I think he just wanted to test it all out. And I think he probably liked what he was hearing during that whole thing. And then at the end he goes, "You fucking great, man."
Man, what an incredible thing to hear from Ozzy. So after you guys get done jamming, he and Sharon go into a room, a separate room from where you're recording. And I'm sure you're just, or rehearsing rather, I'm sure you're sitting there with what was extreme anxiety. And Tommy Clufettos, who was just a fill-in at that time, I think he was filling in for Mike Borden, he looks at you and he's like, "You got the gig." And you're like, "What do you mean? They haven't even talked to me." And he's like, "What do you think they're talking about?" What's going through your head when he's saying that to you? I mean, are you still like, are you feeling pretty good? Like, oh, I got this in the bag? Or are you like, I don't know, man?
No, I think that 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 thought just crossed my mind as soon as Tommy told me that. Because at that point I was like, okay, well, that's it. You know, that'll be my story. You know, that'll be the cool story that I'll tell my friends back home, and that's it. But then when he told me that, like, you probably got this. Like, why do you think they're in there talking now? And that's when it hit me, and I was like, oh shit, probably something's happening now.
Well, and then
And you know,
your first
I
gig
was
with
nervous.
Ozzy was at the BlizzCon, which is a gaming convention, which is certainly an interesting first gig. And I'd have to imagine that, given that it was maybe a little bit more of an informal setting, not like an Ozzy headline show, I would imagine it's got to take some of the pressure off of being in something so big at the time. Almost like maybe like a relaxed warm up show, since it was part of a convention.
Yeah, not for me, man.
No.
Like, because it just happened. No, because it just happened to be on pay-per-view as well. So
Oh, no kidding. So there's
a
a
lot of
lot of
people
people
were
watching.
watching.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think it was like at least like 6 or 7 thousand people in that room. It was not like a small room. It was like a big gig. Plus the pay-per-view. Like, nobody told Ozzy that it was being televised, because I think he would have gotten stressed about it.
Wow. No kid. That's I didn't realize it was on pay-per-view. So after that, when it comes time to record the Scream album, everything had already been written, the guitar parts by Kevin Shirko, the producer, except for the acoustic intro on Digging Me Down. Is it frustrating that, aside from playing on the record, when you are a part of something as big as Ozzy, that you weren't really able to contribute anything to these songs? Or are you just like, fuck it, I'm playing with Ozzy, man, I don't give a fuck?
I mean, you can look at it like that if you want to be like that, but you have to look at the positive also.
Sure,
Like,
of course.
I get to be on this album and play the guitar, so I honestly I never really cared. I think other people cared more about that fact than me.
Sure.
Because I hear that every now and then, like, oh, it's sad he never got to do an album where he wrote stuff with him from scratch. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, yeah. It's sad that I'd never got to write Crazy Train either, but I wasn't born then. So, like, you have to focus on, you have to keep the things that actually happened and the opportunities that came, and not the things that didn't happen or the what ifs. Like, I never really cared much about those things.
Well, I think
I care about the stuff that is there, the opportunities that are there in front of me, and
sure.
What's the best thing that I can do for it. Yeah.
Well, I know that you, I think you had said before that you and the rest of the band had kind of worked through a handful of songs just during rehearsals on the tour. Obviously, they didn't turn into anything, but did any of the songs that you had written during that time end up turning into anything you ended up putting out with Firewind or on a solo record or anything?
Yeah, like a bunch of that stuff ended up on my first 2 solo records.
Oh, no
first
kid.
3 solo records. Yeah, because I'd written a bunch of riffs for him, for what was going to be a follow-up to Scream, but that thing just got cut short because he went back to Sabbath and he was busy with them for like the next 3 years. So I still kept playing with him, but it was more like sporadic gigs here and there. Like, whenever he was on a break from Sabbath, we would do like a short run in South America, or like a festival here and there in the States or whatever. But at that point, like the idea of a new album, it was not really in the cards. So eventually I just collected my material, and some of it got used to it. Yeah. There's a bunch of songs on an album mine called Brand New Revolution, and on the Fearless album, the solo albums, I mean, some of those songs ended up there.
When you're a part of something as massive as that was, is the pressure really on for you now that you're being compared to, legends like Randy Rhoads, Jakey Lee, Zakk Wylde, stuff like that? Or are you just kind of like, just kind of stay in my lane and just roll with it?
I mean, you always feel that kind of pressure, of course, from the outside, and people will talk, and you have to kind of make a choice how much of that you're going to take into consideration, how much of those comments and opinions you're going to read. Or even if you do read it, it's up to you how much you're going to believe all that.
Sure.
You can believe that you can believe if you want that you're the best if somebody says so, or you can believe that you're the worst as well. So none of these things is good for your ego or for to do it, because it's not good to think that your shit doesn't stick, but it's also not good to think that if somebody says you suck, like, don't take that too personally either. So like I never cared too much about it. And like of course, the ghost of guitar players past was always there,
Of course.
and it's definitely a heavy position to be in. But you like, it's a challenge, and I thought I decided before when I got the gig, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the best that I can given the circumstances. Even though I'm a total stranger to this world, I've come from my background was just having my own band and writing my own music. I didn't know anything else. So I said, I'm going to do the best I can, and let's see what happens. It's just once in a lifetime opportunity. So, and as Kevin Churko put it once when we were in the studio, the producer, he said to me, because he said to me, no, I think I said like, I'm probably gonna go down in history as like the worst guitar player that ever played with him. And he said, yeah, maybe you will. He said, but at least you were one of them. So,
Well, sure. I mean, there's a million people, more than a million people that would have loved to have that gig. But
yeah,
to that point, when you did the Ozzy and Friends tour in Europe in 2012 that featured Zakk Wylde as a guest, is it weird playing playing his songs with him right there in front of you?
I think he did his own stuff like that when he did his the material that he wrote with Ozzy. That's when he was a guitar player, and then in the end, we kind of all went out and jammed on a couple of songs.
I gotcha. Okay, so you guys weren't all on stage together the whole show.
Not the whole show. I can't remember exactly, but I think Slash would come out for a couple of Sabbath songs, and we were there together.
Wow.
And then we would go out, and then Zakk would come out to play like I don't know, like Mom, I'm Coming Home or something like that. And then everybody would go up on stage in the end, and we would play Paranoid or something. So that's when all the guitar players and everybody was on stage as well. And Geezer Butler was there as well. So, yeah.
After the Black Sabbath farewell, and then just before Ozzy's No More Tours 2, which saw Zakk, of course, returning to the fold, and Sharon calls you and lets you know that they were going to be bringing Zakk back as they, wind things down. Is it like a crushing blow, or is it something that you would always sort of expected to happen at some point, or at least had in the back of your mind?
Yeah, it was one of those things that I always had in the back of my mind that, this is a solo artist, and eventually he might just want to change the team. He might just want to change the lineup. And, given the fact that he's heading for like the final bow, it's called, or bow.
Yeah, the final bow. Yeah, yeah.
The final bow. Yeah, bow is a different thing. Yeah. As he's heading towards the final bow, and he's done the farewell tour with Sabbath. And then the next thing is the farewell solo tour. Yeah, I knew that, something like that would probably make sense. And it's not one of those things you should take for granted, like when you're like a sideman for a solo artist like that. So.
Sure. Well,
to me, it was just something that I thought eventually would happen, and yeah, I think I got the most that I could have out of that gig.
Yeah. Well, you've kind of been in the news a little bit recently because the other day in another interview you mentioned that while you were with Ozzy, you received an audition or an offer to audition with Megadeth, which I guess this would have been 2014, 2015, in between. Chris Broderick and Kiko Loureiro, I guess. Is that the right? Is that the right time period? About 14, 15?
Yeah, 15. Yeah, yeah. The clickbait stories, right? So that's what matters. The what ifs. No, because I keep getting asked that thing, like, did anybody else call you? Like, I've heard that, and I never really discuss these things, but I think the other day I just like, yeah, I've gotten a couple of offers, some through through the years. Well, not offers, but this was like, back then what happened was Dave Ellefson gave me a call, and he was telling me that um, Chris was stepping down, and they were looking for somebody to come in, and replace him. And he said, "With that, he knew. I know you're with Ozzy doing this thing." And so I don't know if David Ellefson was like, his role was to scout and guitar players and talk to people and see who was available. Maybe that's what it was. It was just like early stages. Like I never got to talk to management. I just spoke to Ellefson directly, and because I've been buddies with him before, and I was just like getting ready to do a South American tour with Ozzy and Judas Priest and Motorhead, the Monsters of Rock tour, and there was talks about doing more things, and I was like, well, I love Megadeth. I'm a huge fan, but it will probably clash with if this continues or something. And yeah, I don't think like mentally I was ready to just jump ship, do that, and so that was a discussion that just basically didn't go anywhere. And he knew, yeah.
So when excuse me, when Kiko left the band a few months ago, did they reach out to you again, or was there never any conversation?
So actually, I spoke to Kiko a little bit, and he already had the demo in place, and he was asking me like, Kiko was saying like, well, like, do you have a visa or something? Like, there might be, if there's any problems. I think they were looking for somebody that might be like some kind of a backup thing, in
Oh,
case
wow.
it doesn't work out, like, or visas don't work out or passports. Um, and I was like, yeah, I don't have a visa. No, not right now. But I don't know if there was like, I think I had some other gigs scheduled, and I think Temu was already in place. And but yeah, me and Kiko have been buddies for a long, long time. Almost 20 years. And I think he found the guy that was gonna fill in for him, who's incredible, by the way.
Yeah, I haven't seen him live with him, but I've seen footage, and yeah, Temu is that dude's a fucking monster, man.
Oh yeah, 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 incredible, and he fits so well in Megadeth.
Is that a situation that, whether it's Megadeth or anybody, is that, I know you said before that you're not really sure that you're really the hired gun type of guy, but is that something you would ever consider if the offer was right again, or are you pretty comfortable just doing what you're doing now?
These these things really depend on where you are and what you got going, and you know what I mean. Like all these things always depend. Um, for me, at least, at this point in my life right now. Um, so I plan my schedule ahead a few months always. So like if somebody called today, I mean, I don't know. Like it really depends. Really depends who it is, what the description of the job is, what they need, and for how long, and who it is, and if it's something that I can do, and like you know if somebody's looking for a permanent member, and it means that I have to quit everything else that I do, then it has to kind of like make sense for me. Like I have to really sit down and think if it's, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, yeah, and you got a 20
so
plus year legacy already with Firewind. I mean, that would not be an easy decision to make.
yeah, like, yeah. And it's always like that question, Firewind is not a big band or anything like that, but it's a band that, we have work to do, and we get work, we get offers to play, and we can make records and, tour on a smaller scale, but we can do it. And, yeah, we don't lose money, thank God. So, so like, and it's something that I've been building for like 20 years. But and I also manage the band. It's like my day job. So I'm not sure like I would be ready to just leave all that, for just anything. But I don't know, man. it's just like a such a multi what's the word, multi levels type of,
I gotcha.
it's a complex answer.
Sure,
It's a
sure.
complex answer for me. Like it's not like I can say, yeah, I would do something like that, or I wouldn't. You can never say never in life. That's one thing I learned. Um, but there's all kinds of technicalities and more questions to that matter. So uh, I know you're trying to get some news out of me about this, but
No, no, man, I'm just trying to have a conversation with you. So, the
yeah, but it's all good, man.
the other band that you had mentioned that did reach out to you to audition, I believe, was Machine Head, which I think that you said was in 2019. So I guess that would have been after Phil Demmel left the band. Was that something that you had?
Hmm.
Is that something that you had considered? I mean, I feel like Gus G and Machine Head is a bit of a not a weird fit, but it's not something that would be expected.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I also like Machine Head. I have to say,
Of course, sure.
my, yeah, it's a fucking killer band, and I know Rob and Phil as well, and the guys, and not very well, but we met a few times. We've hung out a couple of times, and they're super cool. Um, yeah. So I mean, I think that whole thing came out like I think Machine Head was gonna come to Greece and do a show. They had a tour plan, and we were talking about maybe like going up on stage and jamming a couple of songs, some covers or whatever. And then I don't know, like the discussion went like, how about like doing this tour? But yeah, would it be a good fit? I'm not sure. I'm not like a thrash guitar player,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Anyways, yeah, and then and then again, I was like in a totally different phase in my life. I was getting ready to do like some Firewind stuff and all that. So yeah, and I think actually a few months after the world shut down, anyways, like everything got canceled anyway, pandemic.
yeah, what a rough few years that was. But now at this point, you're
Yeah.
pretty full speed ahead with Firewind. But of course, like we mentioned, you've put out a few solo records over the years. Do you have any plans following the Firewind record and tour to do another solo album?
It's not in my immediate plans because I want to see how far this album can get us. I want to see how much we can tour with this. We're already discussing like round two. Like we already planned the first leg, and we're discussing round two for the fall. We'll see where it takes us. And once that thing winds down, then I'm gonna think of what my next move is gonna be.
Obviously, being a part of Ozzy brought a lot of awareness to your name. But did it do anything to help raise the profile of Firewind, or not so much?
I'm not sure about that. It definitely, I think it definitely helped the brand Firewind to make it more like international, if you like.
Sure.
I think a lot more people just knew of the name, like the next day, so to speak. I don't think it necessarily brought too many more tickets through the door or record sales, but I mean, who sells records anyways nowadays?
No
Um,
kidding.
but yeah, but I mean, I do see and I do meet fans that come to the shows that they found out about me through Ozzy, and it's always interesting to hear the story and the background of fans, how they first heard about you or your band, and what turned them on to your band. So, but yeah, I think it definitely helped. I cannot say it didn't help. It definitely helped.
Sure. Well, obviously, you've got the new record coming out here in a couple of weeks, a ton of tour dates all over the world. Anything else we need to cover as we wrap this one up?
No, man, we're coming to America in April, so I hope to see people out there.
Yeah, this
We're going to
was
be touring with Edge of Paradise and Immortal Guardian.
your last tour here was with you were supporting Dragon Force, right?
We did Dragon Force 2 years ago, and that was like our first American tour with Firewind in 9 years. So that was a long time, a
Wow.
long gap. But the band had already been on, like also been on a hiatus for a few years. So that was the reason why we didn't play America for such a long time.
Well, I think all of the dates are available on Firewind's website and probably your own as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah, everything is up online, on our socials, the website, our Bands in Town page. You can find all the exact dates and the tickets and all that stuff. And yeah, we're gonna be doing 20 cities, so hopefully we'll see a lot of you people out there. It's gonna be a good one. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, make sure you check out the brand new Firewind album, Stand United, when it comes out on March 1st. Gus, thanks so much for coming on, man. Really, really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Have a good one.